Finish them!
Flawless victory.
Get over here!
The newest Mortal Kombat movie delivered not only the over-the-top action we've come to expect from the movie franchise, but finally managed to deliver on the blood and gore we expect from the video game franchise.
This is not the blood of the chosen one.
If you're gonna have bloody violence, you need monsters to cut into tiny little pieces. Luckily, Shang Tsung brought a whole lot of monsters that we've ranked from least to most effective. There's no denying that the absolute worst warrior for Shang Tsung's cause was old Shang Tsung himself. I can't think of a single villain who played himself quite like Shang Tsung did in Mortal Kombat. This guy spent the entire film trying to prevent Raiden from training his fighters for the Mortal Kombat tournament.
These are your champions?
The thing is though that Raiden had himself a ton of lemon fighters, most of whom were completely and utterly unprepared for the fast-approaching showdown. This motley crew of international miscreants were much more of a threat to each other than they were to Outworld.
Oh, that was great. Really. Good stuff.
Sure enough though, once Shang Tsung started attacking them and their families, the team united and found their inner strength. If you'd just gone forward with the tournament as planned, you'd be sipping Mai Tais on your own personal Australia right now, Shang Tsung. Bad decision, bud. Shang Tsung really hyped up Nitara as one of his greatest, most beautiful warriors ever.
Nitara. She is beautiful.
So it must have been quite the slap in his face when Kung Lao defeated her with the same amount of effort it took all of the older brothers of the world to put a flawless victory on their younger siblings. He then added further insult to her injury by performing the single most brutal fatality in the movie, proving forever that having a razor-sharp Captain America's hat is a pretty solid power. It's no wonder why Shang Tsung stole his soul like 10 minutes later. He must have taken that pretty personally. It's very easy to see how this movie could have been about a half-hour long. The Reptile cut, as I'd like to call it, would show you how things would have gone if Reptile had actually used the massive advantages he had in his fight against Sonya, Kano, and Cole. He was able to turn invisible and shoot globs of acid out of his mouth. Not only that, but he had razor-sharp claws and teeth. Even without those powers, his natural fighting skill was enough to take on all three of them for several minutes. If they didn't instantly get the upper hand on a 1 versus 3, you know the enemy is dangerous. So it should have been incredibly easy for him to sneak in, burn all three of them to a crisp, and sneak out before they even knew what happened. Instead, he had to do the old Predator routine and allow them to beat him up and eventually rip the heart right out of his chest. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Moral of the story, if you ever find yourself to be invisible, take out your enemies as quickly as possible. All of Team Shang Tsung were elite warriors with specialized powers, like bat wings, the ability to control ice, and razor-sharp teeth. Then there was Reiko, whose special power was that he had a really big hammer. Now to be fair, he managed to get quite a lot out of that giant hammer of his. Reiko pretty much decimated Jax in their first fight. The only problem with having your entire fighting style revolve around one weapon is that when you face off against a warrior who upgraded his metal arms to be even stronger than your hammer, it's pretty much all over. Once Jax was able to break Reiko's weapon into splinters, it was pretty easy for him to take control of the fight and make Reiko's skull into a smoothie. Next time, maybe bring a few backup hammers of varying sizes just in case. I have some serious mixed feelings on Mileena's portrayal in the new movie. On the one hand, the film completely ignored the interesting backstory she has in the game series.
You took my throne.
If you just watched the movie, you wouldn't know that Shao Kahn conquered the nation of Edenia, married their queen Sindel,
Wife, I have missed you.
and adopted her daughter Kitana as his own. Then, fearing that she'd one day betray him, he had her cloned into the monstrous Mileena, and then set the two against each other. In the movie, she was just that ninja with the terrifying teeth, licking the bloody sai. Ooh. On the other hand, the film did a pretty good job at establishing her as a threatening presence throughout. She devastated Sonya Blade with little effort at all, and would have ended it permanently if Sonya had been worth it. In the final fight, she more than held her own with her twin Sai and shark teeth. Hopefully she ends up walking off her fatality for a sequel that will do her story as much justice as the first one did for her abilities. I have a real soft spot for Kabal, as he was one of my go-to characters when playing NK11 with my friends. So I was very pleased to see him schooling Liu Kang in their first fight using his super speed and hook swords. Not only did he prove why a lowly Black Dragon would be hired alongside the warriors of Outworld, he was also the one who provided the intel that gave their team the big win in Raiden's hideout.
Hey, Kano. It's been a while.
His inside connection with Kano was the thing that nearly won the entire game for Outworld. Sure, Liu Kang got him in the end, but he had to pull a Fire Dragon super move out of nowhere. How do you even defend against the Fire Dragon, huh? Honestly, I hope that there's a deleted scene that shows the circumstances behind the burns Kano caused during their time as Black Dragons.
Kano,
Yeah, he's the reason I live in an iron lung.
More Kano and Kabal would be very much appreciated, thanks. That and Hollywood's favorite Charles Manson actor, Damian Harriman, had a blast voicing him. It would be great to see him get to play the man under the mask. Who would have guessed that Kano would have ended up being the Robert Downey Jr. of Mortal Kombat?
Let's see if you're a natural blonde.
Did you model in Tokyo? Because she modeled in Tokyo.
This guy performed a flawless victory all over the other actors in every single scene he was in. Even though he was on Team Raiden for the most of the movie, he proved himself to be one of Team Shang Tsung's MVPs within minutes of joining the team. He was the one who broke Raiden's force field, which led to the rest of the film's nonsense. As far as his fighting skills were concerned, even though Kung Lao and Liu Kang made fun of him pretty much for the whole movie for how weak he was,
There's much to learn.
he proved himself to be a very effective fighter. He ripped Reptile's heart out, he was the first one to discover his powers, and managed to destroy Raiden's staff. Sure, Sonya got the better of him in the end, but that's just because she exploited his kryptonite-style weakness: garden gnomes. Not only that, but Josh Lawson proved himself to be the movie's MVP by perfectly delivering one of the film's best lines.
Kano wins.
Prince Goro is one of the most recognizable Mortal Kombat characters. The four-armed monster has been the bane of every gamer's existence since he first appeared as a sub-boss all the way back in the first Mortal Kombat game. So it's perfect that Goro was such a formidable presence in the new film. He proves himself to be a one-man army in the brief fight he has. Cole Young was so overwhelmed by him that he had to form cool golden armor superpowers just to keep from getting his limbs ripped apart. You have to admire Cole's wife for charging at the four-armed Hulk with an axe to save his life. As cool as it was to see Goro unleashed in this movie, I wish we would have gotten to see him rip apart Kung Lao instead of Shang Tsung stealing his soul. Is it wrong that even though the new CGI one looks more realistic, a part of me prefers the cheap one from the 90s movie?
Time to die.
For me, the thing that the new Mortal Kombat gets right, that no other film before it has, is just how cool the rivalry between Scorpion and Sub-Zero is. The movie proves from the very beginning that it knows exactly what we want from one of gaming's biggest beefs. The treacherous Bi-Han attacks the Hasashi family and proves within a few seconds that this won't be the PG-13 Mortal Kombat from the original. From that opening scene, the film doesn't just depict Sub-Zero as a formidable warrior, but basically a slasher movie villain. I mean, Jax was a specially trained soldier with a giant gun, and Sub-Zero took him on like Michael Myers does with legions of terrified teenagers. Even when our heroes have unlocked their powers and are planning on how they want to take on Shang Tsung's forces, they agree to save Sub-Zero for last, so they can jump him together. In the end, not even Cole or the undead Scorpion alone is enough for Sub-Zero. They have to have a Hasashi family team up to finally get his health low enough for Scorpion to pull off his fatality. Though I have to say, I was disappointed Scorpion didn't pull his entire spinal column out. A boy can dream, you know? The sequel will probably see Kano, Mileena, and Sub-Zero as Noob Saibot get de-fatalitied. Hopefully they bring with them the likes of Quan Chi, Baraka, Ermac, and of course the big guy himself, Shao Kahn.